we go.
One of these days, I will actually finish that intro, like animation video that I've been working on. So
you've been saying that for
like
you've been saying that for
have
2
a proper
months.
intro. But anyways, welcome to BitRate, everybody. I'm John Aldrich.
Welcome.
Joining me, as always, is Ash, Mr. Fiction Addiction himself over here.
Me.
Ash, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I spent most of today working on some Ash plays and some aesthetic stuff, and a little bit of Fiction Addiction.
Being productive.
Yeah, for once in my goddamn life, I'm doing stuff. There should be. Whoops, I'm nudging around the mic. There should be something, not soon, but within October on all of those channels.
Very nice. I have been up since 8 p.m. yesterday. Because I took a nap yesterday and I just haven't slept since. I've been working on edits for not for my own personal stuff, but work. We're doing a bunch of coverage for Screen Rant for New York Comic-Con. We have a crew over there. They're killing it. They're crushing it, doing some awesome interview work. And I've been pulling in some time doing some edits on that. In addition to that, I have a video that I did for CBR that is going to be going up here soon.
Cool.
That's a one-off video that I edited. So that's exciting. But also on top of that, I also have some Bender Waffle stuff coming down the pipeline. But I'm also moving. So I did spend a good portion of last night and yesterday packing.
You got shit to do.
Yeah, I've got a lot going on in my life. And I will say I've already posted at least one TikTok about it, but I've been finding a bunch of stuff while packing that like I forgot that I have.
Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot.
That I've been like making like mental like not actually a mental. I made the conscious decision that I'm going to create content about some of those things.
Yeah, sure.
So I have like a bunch of like TikToks and there'll be Instagram reels and all that sort of stuff that's going to be going up. I actually have one that'll go up after this show is over.
If it's the one you sent me this morning, it is very fun.
So you guys can go and check out all that stuff and see all that stuff moving. But because of me moving, we might not have a show next weekend. In fact, I can guarantee we're not going to have a show next weekend. Because that is actually when I am moving. I will be unpacking all of my stuff. So Esh will probably you'll stream something
probably most likely.
You normally do when I'm not around.
I try to.
If you keep the flame lit.
If I'm available, I will. I'll probably just do an art stream like I've done the last few times.
That works. But yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
With Power 52. So we have some news to talk about today. We have some stories. We are going to be talking about Spider-Man 2 gets its PC port announced, and along with that announcement also seems to be the dashing of everyone's hopes for any DLC for that game. We'll be diving into that. Knull is apparently not going to be the big bad villain of Venom: The Last Dance, as we've all seemed to believe since he popped up in the last trailer, but apparently he's not going to be the main bad guy, at least. But before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about this is something that I'm very, very excited about, even though like historically these things have been very, very expensive. And that is that Analogue has finally launched is finally said that they're going to be launching they call it the Analogue 3D. It is their 4K Nintendo 64 FPGA based console here in 2025. This is something that they announced a while back. We knew it was coming, but we finally got our first look at it and pre-orders are open for it. Ash, are you excited about this? Is this something that was on your radar at all, or is this something?
I remember hearing about it a while ago. And Nintendo 64 is one of the few consoles I've never like owned any real version of.
Really?
Well, there are more consoles I've never owned, but I never had a Nintendo.
Were you a Nintendo kid growing up?
No, because aside from owning a Game Boy, PlayStation, when I was growing up, PlayStation 1 was like the new hotness. And it was very much like PlayStation country here. Everybody had a PlayStation. Not a lot of people actually had old Nintendo consoles. I remember some of the first gaming I ever did was on like my neighbor having a Sega Genesis or something. I might have played a little bit of Sonic as like a 4-year-old. That's basically what I remember. But my first consoles were a Game Boy and a PlayStation. And nobody I knew had Nintendo. Or if they did, they weren't my friends because I didn't have a lot of friends in school. But so I never actually owned a Nintendo console until the Wii. And it was a while after the Wii that I even got it. I bought it used. But since then, I've tried to, catch up a little. I have a GameCube now. I have my Super Nintendo. A friend of mine used to have an NES. We'd play quite a bit on that, and so on and so forth. But Nintendo 64 has always kind of escaped me. I had like one friend who had one, but the only games we ever seemed to play on it was fucking Snowboard Kids. So
It's a decent game.
There's that.
I had a
game. It was
Nintendo
fun.
64. I had a Nintendo 64 growing up. The first console that I ever owned, my brother and I got a Super Nintendo one year, and then a couple of years later, our mom bought us a Nintendo 64. And for me, primarily, the Nintendo 64 was like a Star Wars machine. I played a crap ton of Pod Racer and
I hear
Rogue
good things
Squadron.
about Pod Racer. Yeah,
Rogue Squadron was a big one for me. That being said, my favorite Nintendo 64 game of all time always has been, always will be Duck Dodgers, Duck in the 24th and a half century. It is just a ridiculously like generic 3D collectathon platformer. We like that generation was ripe with them.
I love that shit.
I loved it so much when I was younger. But the Nintendo 64 has kind of been a weird console. I mean, not really weird, just a very unfortunate console, because I feel like out of like that generation just in general did not age well.
Not super well, no.
But the Nintendo 64, the Nintendo 64 particularly hasn't aged well because no systems have backwards compatibility with it.
Well, that and compared to the PS1,
like the PS1, like, you can play PS1 games on the PS3, blah blah blah. They were all like bunch of them were re-released. There's a lot of avenues for playing PS1 games.
Well, I'm Nintendo 64. I'm not even just talking about backwards compatibility. I'm just talking about how even when it came out, like PlayStation was this new hotness with the disc system and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And Nintendo 64 was nowhere near as powerful. Now, Nintendo has never focused on power, first and foremost. Let's be real here. The GameCube and the Wii were definitely also like half a step behind of everything else in terms of raw power and performance. But, having cartridges still in the age of disc technology kind of sets it back. I'm not saying anything bad about the games, by the way. I played certain Nintendo 64 games either on emulation or with friends later, and there's lots of brilliant games on that console. Don't get me wrong for a second. They're classics for a reason. But it is definitely limited, and every time you see comparisons between the N64 port and the PS1 port of a game, the PS1 is usually better. Like, I'm sorry to say, but it tends to be.
Well, and the decision to go with cartridges definitely shot them in the foot historically. As Orc War Chief Reviews pointed out in chat here, I felt so ripped off when I bought a Nintendo 64. I thought Nintendo's the RPG company. I should buy Nintendo.
Oh, fuck no.
The Super Nintendo had a ton of JRPGs, a ton of classics, Chrono Trigger, the Final Fantasy games, the Dragon Quest games. Like, they were all Breath of Fire. They were all...
Legend of Dragoon, Mana, Terranigma, like... You go nuts.
When we jumped over into this generation, suddenly the cartridges are just not big enough to fit these games. Nope. Square jumped ship, Enix jumped ship. Like, it was just everybody just jumped over to PlayStation. The PlayStation became the RPG console.
I mean, remember, Secret of Mana was supposed to be way, way bigger than it is, and that's already a brilliant game. But that, and I know that's Super Nintendo, but it was supposed to be on N64, I believe. They were definitely developing it for something bigger.
There was, I believe it was Dawn of Mana. One of the sequels or something was
whatever. My point is that the space limitations of the cartridge really held the console back.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Speaking of space limitations, let's talk about, this is one, Gaming with Power brought up. The N64 version of Resident Evil 2 is a pretty decent port. This one's a fun one to talk about. If you, this is a side tangent, but if you ever get a chance, Modern Vintage Gamer MVG has a video all about this port, because this port managed to take the 2-disc Resident Evil 2 and cram all of it, including the FMVs, into a 64 megabyte Nintendo 64 cartridge.
That's absolute insanity, because like
the wizardry behind the way that they made that shit work is a goddamn miracle. I would highly recommend going and watching MVG's video on that.
I might have to see that.
Wild.
Because that is insanity. So every single goddamn time you hear about an N64 port of a PS1 game, the FMVs
It's
are
always
the first
like
to go.
really badly hindered.
Yeah, or it's
Not
like
the case with
it's like
not the case with Resident Evil 2. It's
you get these badly compressed JPEGs and maybe 2 lines of narration, and that's it.
yeah, no, there's actual like I mean they're compressed to like the
Obviously.
point of being almost unwatchable, but the FMVs are there.
That's
like
insane. That's
yeah,
insane.
it's wild.
So,
Definitely
but
definitely
anyway,
go check out his video on that, but watch it after.
But anyway, the making this library so much more available. Well, you still have to
Yes.
buy the games or emulate them, I suppose. But making this library so much more accessible than it's ever been is definitely going to be fun. Like,
Oh yeah.
surely Nintendo has been putting stuff on Nintendo Online, and that's great and fine and everything. But as usual, Nintendo Online is pretty limited.
Well, and also
there's
Nintendo's Nintendo.
of course. And
You know.
there's the whole thing of if you happen to own some less than famous games, then you're just shit out of luck. So I think this is a brilliant idea, and even the price tag is pretty damn good. Like what is it?
$249 for
That's-
the Analog 4K, which for those of you who don't know about Analog, Analog is a company, they've been around for a while, and it's like premium high price clone consoles. They're built using FPGA, field programmable or field reprogrammable array or something like that. I forget what FPGA stands for, but basically it's a chip that can emulate and can, well, not really, it's not emulating. It's a chip that can like become other chips. And so it's as close to running real hardware without running real hardware.
Yeah.
And that's why it's not emulation, but Analog has had systems for they released the Analog NT years and years back. It was like $400 for like an NES system, but it was like super premium, like really, really nice. Then they kind of scaled back the premiumness with their SNES. I forget what that was called.
I don't know, but they have them here. I can see they also have Genesis and Game Boy, from what I can tell here.
The Game Boy one, the Analog Pocket, is the one that like has gotten a ton of press and has gotten a ton of attention because it can play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance all in one system, and it's like super nice. I've been wanting to get one of those for a while, but it's like $200 and it's hard to justify. Especially because I have modded Game Boys and stuff that kind of fill the same role. But so them coming in and saying like, hey, we're releasing an N64 is exciting. And for a lot of like collectors and those sort of people who, I would almost say there's like a sweet spot with that this console perfectly fits, because you have your hardcore collectors, your hardcore retro gaming enthusiasts who they have their retro tinks, they have their OSSCs, they have their ways of getting proper video output out of an N64. That something like this is flashy and exciting, but it isn't like the answer for them necessarily, because they can already get a good quality image out of their N64. And then you have folks who are kind of on the lower end of the spectrum and just want something that's just like plug and play option. Like they just want to put their cartridge in and they just want it to work. This sits in the middle there where it's like, okay, you're willing to spend a little bit of money and but you want something that looks nice. This is a good option for that.
Well, I mean,
4K output on the Nintendo 64, that's nuts.
I'm not in any hurry to get this thing. I don't have that much of a nostalgic connection to N64 or anything, but like I have a converter that I use for a bunch of my retro consoles, like my PS2 and stuff like that.
What do you use?
You recommended it to me, by the way.
Oh, is it the OSSC?
Yes, the OSSC, which is wonderful, by the way. I love that machine. It's hell and back.
It was
the
like
main
$200 or something like that.
Sounds about right. The main problem with that one is like getting the right SCART cables for it, but who cares?
See, the fact that you get to use SCART. I'm in North America. We don't have SCART as a that's not really a standard. So I can order like European SCART cables for a lot of my systems, but then I pay import costs.
But what I was saying was I have that to use my my retro consoles, like my Super Nintendo, my Sega Genesis, my Wii, all that. And if I find these consoles at a decent price, sure, I'll get them, but I'm not really a collector in that way. I'm not going out tomorrow looking for a good deal on an NES. So and I'm not gonna be going out looking for a good deal on Nintendo 64. So if I ever find like myself like really wanting an N64 for some reason, this would be what I did.
Yeah.
Having the original hardware is fun and nice for collecting purposes, but I see no problem with having these like recreations, these these plug and play machines, the Retrons or whatever.
I love clone consoles like this, and I always been fascinated by them for years.
It's also just a great idea. Like
gaming with power asks, do analog consoles play multi-carts? Here's what I will say: these consoles play anything that original hardware plays.
Yep.
So yes, they will play multi-carts. Also, I'm just going to throw this out there. Pretty much all of Analog's consoles have an SD card slot. Do with that information what you will. I'm not telling you what you can do with that. Analog is certainly not telling you what you can do with that, but it's there.
Yep.
It's for firmware updates.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is, and nothing else.
It's just like I don't use the IPS patching features of my Retron 5 for any nefarious
No, why would you?
Purposes.
Why would you? I mean, I just love the idea of these. I just love the idea of these analog consoles because it really is like, all right, if you're not gonna give us the option, we're gonna make it. Like the way that indie gaming has been working for like 10 years now. Like if the big companies are just gonna sit on this shit and they're not gonna give us what we want, regardless of how hard we wave money in front of their goddamn noses, we'll do it ourselves.
Can I admit something to you, Ash?
What's up?
This is something that has a tendency to get me into a little bit of hot water, but as we know, I'm not the biggest Nintendo fan.
That's true.
I'm especially not a supporter of their business practices.
Well, no, I'm not a fan always either.
I will say this right now: if it wasn't for Pokemon, I don't think I would give Nintendo another cent.
Yeah, I know you're saying this. There are games I definitely want to play for Nintendo, but I get you. I totally understand.
Like, because I have no interest in Zelda anymore. I've never been a big Mario guy. Metroid is fine, but like there are other action platformer Metroidvanias that I can play. Like, there's nothing that they put out that like rocks the world for me. But because, you know, the Pokemon Company is a second party developer for them, if I want to play Pokemon games, which I do often, I have to keep giving Nintendo money for their systems.
I mean, I totally get it, and it's totally fine. Who knows, man? There was a time where we thought Square would absolutely never abandon Super Nintendo. Who knows what happens in the future? You know,
Nintendo is like has part ownership of the Pokemon Company.
I know.
They're going to be leaving Nintendo.
I was making fun most of all. I was just thinking of how much of a shakeup that was back in the day when Final Fantasy made its way to PlayStation.
Could you imagine if that happened today? Like how with the current like state of internet fandom, how just rabid shit would be if like that Square Enix jumping ship happened now.
I was recently rewatching a lot of AVGN just like in the background as things were going.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how back in the day when consoles were a little more Wild West, the fact that some of these consoles, you could just plug a Genesis controller into that. Oh yeah, this random Atari control can play a Genesis game. Oh yeah, this random ass fucking thing that some dude made. Yeah, you could just plug an Atari Atari cartridge in there. Who cares?
Yeah.
Nowadays, fuck no.
Everything's so locked down.
If you bring an Xbox disc within 500 miles of a PlayStation console, you're basically asking for an ass kicking at this point.
That's why it's still like I still laugh so much when because MLB The Show is our like Major League Baseball series. It's published by PlayStation Studios, but it's a multi-platform title.
Yeah.
So there are Xbox games with PlayStation Studios branding. And there's also Microsoft Game Studios, like their branding will be on like Bethesda games and stuff.
Yeah.
That get released for PlayStation. It's hilarious to me.
And watching people have meltdowns over it is very funny.
Did you hear about people losing their minds over the Pokemon?
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Yes, we heard about it, and it's the
Here's
stupidest
the thing, like,
shit.
some like part of those leaks I was excited about, seeing like the beta sprites of Pokemon and like things of
Always
that
exciting.
nature.
I love that shit.
As someone who dabbles in game development and who's been doing that since I was a kid, I love looking at like beta assets and like
Well,
pre-planning
as an
and
artist,
stuff.
I love looking at it. So
All that stuff about like Typhlosion and all this stuff, like shut the fuck up. Why are like don't throw a fucking hizzy fit over something that was like basically a writing like challenge, internal studio, never meant to be released, was never meant to be taken seriously.
Here's a little thing that people don't realize about development of like major franchises. A lot of the work being done is basically fucking around and finding out.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like concept art, concept writing, sometimes even well into the franchise when things have been fairly well established, like 2 generations into a franchise, you still have sessions of just like try shit out.
Yeah.
Just write something, see if it fits. And someone was like, well, Pokemon are already very, very much based on yokai and folklore to begin with. Let's see how far we can take it. And it's even still fairly tame, by the way, compared to real folklore in the real world. And it was rightfully scrapped because it was never meant to be that serious. It was always just meant to be like, how far can we take this similarity without it getting insane?
Well, and I also know that at least in the case of the Typhlosion stuff,
isn't that partly a mistranslation or something?
Yeah, it was like a mistranslation. Like a lot of the stuff that everyone was freaking out about that particular story. A lot of people are like, yeah, you can attribute a lot of this to just like a mistranslation about the actual intent behind the writing.
But also like read some freaking mythology.
Yeah, just folklore in general is just jacked up. So like if something that's meant to be folklore, it's gonna be a little messed up.
Even I'm just amazed that apparently so many people freaking out about this have never been told a freaking fairy tale in their life. I mean,
they've been given like the Disney-fied version of
which we all have, but it's like such a common fun fact nowadays that those stories are way more fucked up originally.
Also, I will point out.
Let me tell you this: the big bad wolf didn't eat grandma. Okay.
Yeah. No. Also, I'm just gonna throw this out there. It was Hisuian Typhlosion, not Jotonian Typhlosion. You leave my Johto boy alone.
I'm just gonna find a pair of glasses and be like, actually.
Even though I'm a ride or die Totodile picker, and I will never and will never take Cyndaquil and his evolutionary line. You leave my Johto mons alone.
Hey, Typhlosion is a good boy. I don't care. But Totodile clears.
Like if I was told I can't have Totodile, first of all, I would just not play the game. But second of all, I would just be like, all right, yeah, sure. I guess I'll take Cyndaquil. I would never, ever take Chikorita. I'm sorry, it's not happening.
That is a weird one.
You couldn't pay me to take Chikorita.
But no, Typhlosion, Totodile, like good boys.
Don't get me wrong, but
absolutely.
My God.
But yes, we heard about it, and it's ridiculous. I love the leaked sprites, though. I definitely feel like I have to draw one of those creatures. I know people are like, oh no, what did they do to Mudkip? First of all, they did nothing.
Yeah.
That was a beta design. Second of all, how do you look at a rabbit with a floaty and not find that hilarious? That's an amazing design.
Every time that like beta sprites or something from Pokemon leaks, I desperately want to put those like beta Pokemon into a Pokemon fan game.
Dude, some of them are so good. Some of them are so good, and I understand why they don't get picked. You know, like, okay, we don't have room. There's a balancing issue. We had a better idea that fits more with this setting that we came up with. There's tons of good reasons, but some of these creatures are so fucking funny and amazing.
Like, I love after the Space World 97
demo.
Oh,
that was a while back.
Everyone got like a proper look at it. And all of those designs of all those beta Gen 2 Pokemon came out. Artists went nuts. And we have full sprite sheets of like updated sprites of what these Pokemon might look like in like 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation. So we could use them in fan games, and I want to see more people do it. I know a few people have. That always makes me excited. I just think
I'm looking back right now because I did draw a couple of those old beta Pokemons back when. And I can't remember if they ever got names, but the little Hitmonchan pre-evolution, the little teddy bear guy with the boxer helmet. How amazing is he? He's fucking awesome. Look at him. And the ladybug with the stars on its back, and my personal favorite, the Jiangxi panda. You know, the zombie panda with the charm on its forehead. That's such a good idea.
I still really like as much as I love Totodile, but just the beta fire and water starters.
I do not remember them.
You had like a fire bear and like what looked like a seal. Like it really just looked like a normal seal.
Oh, right. I see them now. Yeah.
And then Chikorita was just fucking Chikorita. Well, like nothing really changed about that. It's just, which I mean, like, it's hard to screw up that design. Just like, hey, lizard thing with a leaf on its head. Cool. All right, we're done.
Yeah. I mean, some of these were fucking amazing, man.
I know that I say this with all the love in the world for Chikorita. Chikorita is just Bulbasaur that we have at home.
Yeah. Also, fucking the Politoad that's actually a toad with a spiral and stomach. Give me that guy. I want that guy. He's so good. Anyways, that's the whole thing.
Speaking of leaks impacting development.
Oh, dear.
That is my segue. Spider-Man 2 was announced to be getting its PC port a lot sooner than I think a lot of people were expecting, which was January 30th, 2025.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's end of January next year, which is very soon. Yeah, January 30th, 2020, which is very, very soon. But with that announcement also came official confirmation that there are currently no plans. Nothing is in development. It is not happening. We are not getting any Spider-Man 2 DLC.
Oh, no.
And the fandom collectively lost their fucking shit.
Mm-hmm. As it always
happens. I have such a goddamn bone to pick with Spider-Man game fans right now.
Okay, go on.
So here's the thing. Curious. I love this. I love these games. Spider-Man for the PS4 was the reason I bought a PS4.
It was damn good.
Spider-Man 2 was the reason why I bought a PS5. Now that it's coming to PC, I had no longer have a reason to hold on to that solid white monolith that's just been collecting dust on the corner.
I'm actually very happy with my new Slim.
I'm gonna be selling mine very soon. I know I've talked about it a while, but I'm like, now I'm 100%. I'm gonna be selling it. But anyways, I love these games. All right. Am I disappointed that we're not getting DLC? Yeah, a little bit. It would have been great to expand that game. That game definitely needed some expansion. But y'all are some entitled motherfuckers. And y'all need to fucking check yourself because bitches, they never announced you were getting DLC. They never told you were getting DLC.
Nope. You just assumed based on 4.
The only time that anyone that there was any information about DLC was the leaks and when they accidentally enabled the debug menu. And there was some references to maybe something that might be DLC. There was never any official, hey guys, it's coming. They never promised anything.
No.
So why are you mad?
Because people want more. And here's another thing. Actually, kind of relating to this, the pricing of games and console and whoa, this one. Sorry. Pricing of games and consoles and stuff. Spider-Man 2 was an incredibly expensive game to make.
Yes, like it's like one of the most expensive games ever made.
The sheer amount of budget bloating from Spider-Man PS4 to Spider-Man 2 PS5 is absolute insanity. And first of all, we shouldn't condone that. Like, we don't need that to keep happening. Second, that also basically automatically means that any DLC would be massive. No matter how short it is, no matter how simple it is, it would be a massive investment. So you can't both complain that the game costs $70, which again, I don't think that's cool either. You can't both complain that the game is too expensive and expect another 15 fucking hours of DLC.
Plus, what
the hell are you doing?
Like, one of the things that a lot of people who are crying about this have been screaming is that they set precedent with the first game. So
what the fuck are you talking about?
The City That Never Sleeps, that DLC was basically an entire game on its own. Like that that DLC is about the same length as the main campaign of the base game. If like that is your expected precedence, you basically just wanted another Spider-Man game.
Which I'm sure we're getting anyway, but
and like Insomniac is busy. They are working on at least 2 games right now because we know they're doing Spider-Man 3 and we know they're doing Wolverine.
I was about to say Wolverine, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Wolverine obviously is top priority, and then Spider-Man 3 is just something that they're like, it's coming, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, what do you want from these people?
By the way, this is the company that gave us like a mid-game in Spider-Man Miles Morales. Yeah. Which, yes, it was half the size of Spider-Man PS4. Whatever. That was still something they did not by any means have to do.
Yeah, nobody expected that.
All. Nobody expected it. They practically shadow announced it. Well, not shadow announced, but they practically like just were like, hey, by the way, we know you're all excited for 2. Here's something to tide you over for a bit.
Yeah, this is coming in like a month or 2.
So not only did you get an insane amount of DLC for the first game, which I personally still haven't played because I didn't have the money for it when it came out. Eventually I will. I think it's
baked into the remaster.
I don't have the remaster. I got the original PS4 Spider-Man. But anyway,
put it into your PS5 and it's a $10 upgrade.
Oh, well, there you go. I might do that soon then. Anyway, my point is they give you a game that pushes boundaries, that is fucking amazing as far as Spider-Man games go anyway, and games in general, really. They give you that. They give you a DLC that, like you said, is basically a sequel in and of itself.
Yeah.
They give you a middle game that's like, what, 60% the size of the original game? Roughly. Very roughly.
Ish.
And then they give you a sequel a couple years after that. Like, even the development time has been surprisingly quick between these games.
Spider-Man PS4 came out in what, 2018?
So at this point, you're just being like the kid who's upset that you can't have cookie number 5.
Yeah.
My
Spider-Man fans have effectively gotten 4 Spider-Man games.
Yeah, like chill
and they're bitching
the
that
fuck
they
out.
did not get a 5th.
This is also a franchise that even before Insomniac kind of like cornered that market, you've never been short on Spider-Man games, first of all.
No.
I mean, they haven't all been Insomniac level of fantastic, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but there are Spider-Man games. If you really, really, really want to play something Spider-Man related you haven't played before, there are options.
Yeah.
Don't fucking be a dick about it, man.
Like, I understand being disappointed. I definitely do.
Sure.
Especially with this game, which was, on the whole, kind of underwhelming, at least compared to the first game. Here's the thing about saying that it's underwhelming, by the way. I stand by that if the first game wasn't the first game, if like we just didn't get Spider-Man PS4 and this was the first Spider-Man game that we got, everyone would be screaming that this shit's a masterpiece.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
This game suffers from what I like to call Lost World-ism, which is like the Lost World Jurassic Park. It had to follow up a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like the Lost World Jurassic Park is a decent movie.
I don't remember any part of that movie other than when it eats the dog.
That's fair. But the biggest failing of that movie is that it is a sequel to Jurassic fucking Park.
I mean, that happens all the time, right? There is such a thing as a tough act to follow. That's how I feel when people shit on Ghostbusters 2. I'm like, what's wrong with Ghostbusters? People act like it killed their grandma sometimes. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the movie that has the Ghostbusters ride Lady Liberty into battle to punch out a slime-infested public library. What is your issue? Why is that not good enough?
Now, that's not to say that Spider-Man 2 doesn't have its problems. Yes,
does.
I feel like the story was a little bit shorter than I would have liked. It felt like they kind of just, Venom appeared and then it felt like a sprint to the end of that story, and they didn't give it any time to breathe. They didn't give Venom any time to like.
You don't even really get to defeat Kraven yourself, which I'm a little annoyed about.
The story wasn't the best, but the gameplay is top fucking notch. I don't think anybody could argue with that.
I could not put it down. It is not super often that I 100% things, but when I was streaming Spider-Man 2, anytime I wasn't streaming, I was like doing all the side shit. When I wasn't doing the side shit, I was just like sitting around like, when can I stream again? I want to unlock more to do. Like,
So I platinumed that game like basically week of release.
mm,
And I have now since done 100% playthroughs of it. I think like 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. I just finished one up like 2 weeks ago.
yeah.
Where I just like, I just sit there and I just 100% everything. Like I just do every single piece of content that there is. And I love it. And I'm happy with it. Would I have loved to have gotten more? Yes, absolutely. 100%. Like,
Sure,
give me more of this. Give me more of this universe because I like this specific Earth.
But expecting it and freaking out when you don't get it is insanity.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and whine and bitch and scream at Insomniac for not giving something to me that they didn't promise me.
I think in general, and let's put a TM on this, gamers TM. I think a lot of gamers TM have become very, very entitled when it comes to content. Let's remember that there used to be a time where DLC was a nice bonus. There was
a time when DLC wasn't a thing.
Exactly. DLC was a thing that happened if a game did well and the developers were like, hey, we can add some shit now. Now,
when
if a
DLC
game
used to be called an expansion pack and you had to go to the store and buy another disc.
And I know we sound like old men right now, but whatever. My point is,
get out my lawn.
Anyway. Don't expect every fucking game to have DLC.
Yeah.
Much like don't expect every fucking game to be a 140-hour open world deal if it doesn't need to be one.
Plus, on top of that,
I'm playing Silent Hill 2 right now. That's not open world. That's just a couple streets.
Plus, on top of that, Spider-Man 2, as we know, is the middle game in a trilogy. It's more than a trilogy if you count City of the Never Sleeps and Miles Morales. But still, it's a set trilogy, and it's the middle game. So yes, it has, there are loose ends. Spoiler alert for Spider-Man 2. You got the Carnage stuff. You got the Chameleon stuff.
Yep.
Black Cat was kind of a loose end there. She had a little bit of a wrap up to her thing, but she's got stuff going on that would be cool to go into. We had all the Spider-Bot stuff that would be cool to explore, but I wouldn't call that necessarily a loose end.
Nah, that's just like a cool little bonus. Like I just had fun trying to gauge what universe each Spider-Bot would be from. Like, aside from that, I didn't even care.
all of that stuff going on, like, it'd be great to get wrap-ups for that, but that, that's just fuel for the fire that is Spider-Man 3, which, based on what we've heard from people at Insomniac, the little amount that they've talked about with Spider-Man 3, which they've been very tight-lipped about it, as I feel like they should be, because we are literal years out from that. This isn't going to be a next year we see a Spider-Man 3 trailer. They've publicly said we're doing Wolverine first. So we got to finish Wolverine before we even hear anything about Spider-Man 3. But based off the stuff that we have heard from people, it sounds like their plans are to make it this gigantic sort of finale, this big epic blowout, this big climax for the trilogy.
I mean, I think we can definitely expect like it building up to a huge fucking showdown with the Green Goblin at this point. Like,
so Green Goblin, a game that has Green Goblin, Chameleon, Carnage, Beetle possibly, because there was like the leaks said that Beetle was going to be a DLC, like all that stuff. We have all the stuff with freaking Yuri. We need to wrap up her story, which I know that's tied in with Carnage, but it also like, we just need to just tie up her relationship with Peter. It could be a huge game. Peter still has the anti-Venom symbiote. They've got to wrap that up at some point.
Sure.
I think Spider-Man 3 is going to be a massive game, what I feel like us not getting DLC just means that Spider-Man 3 has that much more to play with.
Which, of course, when it comes out and people freak out over it not being the absolute masterpiece they expect and not curing their cancer within a day, then we're going to have a whole other problem. But whatever.
I'm going to call that Mass Effect 3ism.
Yeah.
It is cannot please everybody.
I'm just a little tired of people being insanely entitled and expecting the world and then getting very, very mad when whatever they made up in their head 3 years ago isn't what they get.
I just think that the fact that literally the only thing that I've seen from anybody about this, I haven't seen anybody online saying like, oh yeah, no, we knew that we weren't getting that DLC. Like, this isn't a surprise. Nobody's saying that. The only people who are talking about this are people who are whining and screaming and complaining.
Yep. As it always
And
happens.
it just annoys me to no end.
Yeah. No, man, I'm getting these kids nowadays, they ain't right, man.
Insomniac's got a lot on their plate. They've got Wolverine. They've got Spider-Man 3. As Carnage in Twitch chat pointed out, they hinted at the possibility of a Daredevil game.
Which I would love, by the way.
About that.
But
there's no confirmation of that. That's not anything official that is coming, but you never know. It might happen. To me,
it's just weird.
More than anything else, I want more games set in this version of the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
I want to explore other heroes and other aspects of the universe.
Yeah,
I want to get an Avengers game set in this.
That would rule. Or even just like solo games with other high profile heroes.
Yeah.
Like how cool.
And then have them let's get a Marvel video game universe going.
Yeah, why not?
Why not have crossovers and let's get
why not have a Captain America game? Why not have a Captain America game? Why not have a Thor game? Why not have another Hulk game? That old Hulk game, everybody loved that one. Why not get another one of those?
Like World.
There was a Hulk game on. Yeah, I think that's the one. Everybody loved that one, as far as I remember. Back when Ang Lee Hulk was a new thing. Oh god, Ang Lee Hulk. Let's not talk about Ang Lee Hulk.
But like, I just want them to expand that as much as that Ultimate Destruction. That's what it's called. As much as I would love to get Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man DLC, to me, like, I just want more of this world. And to be honest with you, them announcing that we're getting the PC port, that was more exciting to me than if they had announced DLC. If they had announced DLC, my response would have been cool. But when's the PC version coming? But then they're announced, they're like, oh yeah, PC port's coming, and I'm like, give me those mods. Where are they at?
I'm just waiting for the Amazing Bagman mod at this point.
My desktop background is actually a screenshot of my modded Spider-Man suit.
Oh god.
Because there's the like armored advanced suit, which was added in with the remastered version. Which is like, it's literally just the advanced suit, but like an armored version of it. Yeah. There's a mod that allows you to like pick the color of the armor plates and the color of the undersuit, and you get to mix and match to create your own armor. So I made my combination was black armor plates, a dark blue undersuit, and a silver spider.
Nice.
And so it's very cool, very like, to me, like that. I like the look for that Spider-Man, and so I love modding it, and I want that mod released for Spider-Man 2. I want to play through all of the games with that suit.
I'm an absolute slut for the costumes parts of Spider-Man games. I want as many random ridiculous costumes as possible.
It's my favorite part of any superhero game.
So I was actually, well, you know me, I already love like alternative versions of superhero outfits and of superheroes in general. So actually I was in the crowd that when Spider-Man 2 came out was a little more, these suits are cool, but I'd like to have seen some more of the weird ones from the comics rather than all these new ones, which they're fine. There's plenty of those suits I fucking love. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy with them. But I was like, come on, man. Give me some of the weird shit from the comics. Give me the Future Foundation suit. Give me Bombastic Bagman. Give me all those things.
I love the Future Foundation suit, except for the fact that the eyes like bulge out.
Yeah, that's weird. But it is an
amazing design. Would be probably my most used suit if it wasn't for...
My point is just, like, I love Spider-Man suits. There's so much you could do with that very, very simple concept and that very, very simple design philosophy. Remember when Spider-Sonas were a big thing? Like, that was insanity. People made some crazy shit.
When it comes to superhero games, I'm a simple man. You can make me love your game if you just give me the ability to change suits.
Yes.
Like, I can't... I've lost track of how many times I have played through Arkham Knight. Because every time that I do a playthrough of that game, I'm like, I'm doing a different Batman.
Yeah.
And I'll go with a different suit every playthrough.
Makes sense to me. That sounds awesome. I would love to see
Yeah.
more of that, honestly. Just let us pick our favorite suits, really. How fun would an Iron Man game be where you can play it in the fucking tin can he debuted in? Like,
I'd be all for that.
I'd be super into that.
Speaking of superhero news, though,
Right.
wrapping up with our last story of today. So Venom: The Last Dance, the final solo Venom movie. I'm going to preface that.
Yeah.
Since the most recent trailer, everyone was like, okay, it looks like Knull is going to be our big bad guy. For those of you who don't know who Knull is the creator of the symbiotes. He's like the god of darkness, basically, and he's the king in black. He's here to jack stuff up. But according to the movie's co-writer and director, one movie could never do justice for Knull. And therefore, Knull is not actually the main villain of Venom 3. He is instead just being set up here for a future appearance down the line, which makes me think we are going to probably see a Sony universe crossover, probably adapting King in Black. If I had to
that would be something else.
Ash, what are your thoughts on this? What are your feelings?
So I haven't actually read any of the Knull stories. We talked about this earlier in private. I know who Knull is. I know his deal. I have very, very mixed feelings about him because to me, Venom doesn't need to be part of some cosmic species with a god that comes to fuck shit up. I actually prefer when Venom is this like kind of undefinable thing. I'm perfectly fine with other symbiotes existing and being born from him and all that, but I kind of prefer when Venom is Venom and there is no this other stuff. So I won't say anything about, Knull as a character. I don't know the guy. I'm sure there's a lot of cool shit out there regarding him. So when I saw that he was the main villain, part of me was like, man, I kind of want to watch Venom fuck up other things than Knull. Because at first, I believe when the movie was first announced, they were really setting it up like the jury were going to be the big bad guys. Am I remembering that correctly?
I think I remember hearing about that, but I don't remember that ever being like an official
whatever
announcement.
I remember that being a theory at some point. I don't know, man. Knull is not like on my radar the way he is for a lot of other people. But sure, I mean, if they can do something cool with it, and clearly the movie is gonna be about like an invasion of symbiotes in some way or form. It sure looks like there's gotta be a lot of symbiote monsters showing up to fuck with Eddie.
So what those things actually are? Those are the Xenophage. They are
right. Yes, I know those.
They are from the 1996 Venom series, Venom the Hunted. That is there so far. If I'm not mistaken, they're only like full comic appearance. They've appeared in like other things, but basically they're creatures from Clintar that eat symbiotes.
Oh, right, that's what it is. Right, so I actually have a toy of one of the Xenophages from back in the 90s. Now that I think about it, that I got as a funny story. My uncle always had daughters. He has like 4 daughters. When I was a kid, he loved buying presents for me because it gave him an excuse to go buy the ugliest fucking monster he could find at the toy store. Like
He's
just
like,
the most
a boy. Goddamn.
Yeah, pretty much. Like he was so used to buying various pink princessy things. Remember, this is the 90s, so he loved like.
I will say, I definitely do feel that. Like, I don't have kids of my own, but I have 2 nieces.
Yeah.
And I love them to pieces, but like I am waiting for my brother to have a boy so that I could be like, yeah, it's time to buy you like
before anyone starts. No, there's nothing wrong with all the feminine stuff, and I'll happily buy it.
There isn't.
Obviously, just a little bit of balance every now and then. Yeah. We all love to share the shit we think.
Well, and especially because like right now, my 2 nieces specifically are very like they're very into princesses right now.
Yeah. It happens.
Really like Anna and Elsa from Frozen, and
I just thought it
Rapunzel.
I just always think it's a funny story that he would like be downright giddy to go to the toy store and just, all right, what's the grossest thing in the entire fucking aisle?
And apparently, a Xenophage was one of them.
I mean, dude, he's horrific. I would have to go to my drawer and find him, but he's horrific. He's horrifying, and I love him. Anyway, back to Knull. I'm not that excited about Knull specifically. I'm more like curious what the hell the main like adversary is gonna be instead. rather. Also, like, the whole Sony universe thing bothers me. Because I've never been into this idea of a Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man in it. I will say that the Venom movies have turned out to be way more entertaining than I ever thought they were going to be.
The Venom movies are easily the best part.
They're the
I know that's a low bar, but like I actually feel like the two Venom movies we've gotten so far have been actually like decent films. I legitimately really like the first Venom movie, and Let There Be Carnage has some strong moments. It's an entertaining enough movie.
I thought the first Venom movie was fine. I liked it fine while I was watching it, and Let There Be Carnage is stupid in a lot of ways.
I'm also not at all precious about Venom.
They were no, that's another thing. They were also very, very clearly trying to turn Shriek into their own Harley Quinn, which didn't work, by the way. But it's also incredibly fun, and I'm a huge, huge man crusher for Woody Harrelson, so yeah. I love that. I love that man.
His casting as Cletus Cassidy, I think, is just that's perfect.
It's almost a shame we didn't get that ugly fucking wig from the first movie, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, like I'm not that precious about Venom myself. He's never been a big favorite of mine, but just the whole idea of having this big event and this big character that is so intrinsically linked to Spider-Man. All these characters that are so intrinsically linked to the character of Peter Parker specifically, and not having him there. It's such a huge hoop you had to jump through.
I think, though, with Venom, they've done a good job of...
They've done decently, yes.
Of disconnecting him from the spider of it all.
Well,
like,
yeah, but...
You don't see Venom web swinging. Like,
no?
He doesn't have that ability. He's not doing any of that. Venom, they've managed to make Venom, I feel, be able to stand on his own. Which and have fine. An origin that doesn't require Spider-Man.
I'm just saying that, like, I tend to prefer him that way, and I never understood Sony's insistence on having this universe without Spidey in it. But for what they have to work with, Venom has worked out pretty well.
I mean, I don't think that it's Sony's insistence that they don't have Spider-Man.
No, they legally
Sony desperately wants Spider-Man to be in their universe.
That is true. They legally
can't.
But
they have a very lucrative deal with Disney that stops that from happening. But they are trying so hard.
Whatever.
They're trying
my point is, it makes the Sony universe really fucking weird and clumsy and strange. And let's not even begin to talk about fucking.
I still stand by that. They are going to find a way to bring Tom Holland into that universe.
Probably at some point. I don't.
Maybe they're playing the long game, and they're like, "Hey, after Secret Wars, he's gonna end up in the Sony universe."
I mean, he's gonna be speaking of crossovers, MCU. Now this is being brought up. Could Knull be the main villain? I hope not, because I want something completely different.
And also, Knull, despite Venom being intrinsically tied to Spider-Man, and Knull being intrinsically tied to Venom, Knull and Spider-Man have basically nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so that's Miles,
yeah.
When Knull first showed up in the comics, Venom and Miles got captured together. And so like Miles was there and being tortured by Knull. So there's a little bit there. And Peter Parker was there during the King in Black event, but he didn't really do much outside of just worrying about Eddie Brock.
Which is why, for all the stuff I said about how I'm a little iffy on the Sonyverse and all that, I don't have strong feelings one way or the other about Knull being in the movie or not, being built up for something else. What I'm worried about is they're talking about building him up for something bigger later. And I'm not entirely convinced the Sonyverse is going to survive that long.
No. That being said, I do think that if they were going to do a big event film for the Sony universe, King in Black is a good option of a storyline to go with.
Sure. Because like Venom is the main hero of that, right?
Well, and it doesn't really require Spider-Man. Honestly, Thor plays a bigger part in King in Black than Spider-Man does.
Yeah.
The Silver Surfer plays a bigger role in King in Black than Spider-Man does.
Yeah.
So like that is a big event that they could base a storyline around that doesn't need Spider-Man.
So
I'm sure they'd swap out some characters. Maybe they swap out what Thor does with Madam Web. sure, in a weird way, fine, whatever, fuck it, do it. Like they need somebody who like at some point severed Knull's connection to the symbiote hive mind, and I guess Madam Web is like the mystical one in your
They
universe.
can all.
So
That's the
her
thing
do
about
it.
adaptations, right? Like you can always find or create a new character to fit a certain role. It's clumsy. It's not always the best option, but sometimes it's the only viable one. Like,
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I would want to see Sony be able to build to a proper like big like blowout
yeah,
crossover. They just need to get their shit together when it comes to their non-Venom films.
they need to make something that's fucking watchable. Okay, so before I say too much, Madame Web is not completely unwatchable, but it is pretty fucking bad.
It's
And
bad.
I have next to no hopes for Craven whatso goddamn ever.
I will say if Craven is bad, I think that's the death knell for this.
That's what I was saying earlier. Like they're talking about this big event, they're talking about their big plans. Last time Sony did this with anything Spider-Man related, they were trying to build up to a Sinister Six movie, and I think we all know what happened with that. That crashed and burned.
That being
hard.
said, the Amazing Spider-Man films, upon like re-examination years later, got a bad rap.
They did. I like the first one actually.
Like I like the second one more than I like the first one. But
well,
like those films could have continued.
They could have. I mean,
and I would have been happy, I think, with what we would have gotten from that. But
I'm not super happy with the Warwick Davis ass Green Goblin they gave us in the second one, but that's a different story. There's a lot to like about those movies. My point is that like I really don't believe that the Sonyverse can continue if they don't shape up real fucking quick.
Like yeah, like literally, like Craven is the next film after Last Dance.
Yeah,
like I think the Venom films have bought enough goodwill that if Last Dance isn't that good, it won't kill the universe.
But if Craven
is bad, that's lights out.
Yeah, I think so. Because what was their next big idea after this? Are they still doing El Muerto, or has that been canceled for the fourth time?
I have no idea.
And I
think they just once again said, "Oh yeah, Silver Sable's coming."
Who? Look, I love when an obscure character gets limelight. Don't get me wrong.
Are we calling Silver Sable obscure?
Well, to the general public, certainly.
I mean, fair.
But like, I love that. But also, who the hell is sitting out there just absolutely losing their mind at the idea of a Silver Sable movie, or of a El Muerto movie?
I would watch Silver Sable. I would not watch it.
Sure, I would watch it, but who's out there like campaigning for it really, really fucking hard? I'm sure you exist, but I'm just asking who.
I think if I knew who they wanted to play Silver Sable, I could get on. I could get on the like, let's make it happen.
Let's just say there's a lot of characters I would rather see before fucking El Muerto or whatever his name is.
Oh yeah. Jumping into chat, let's take a look at chat and answer a few questions. We got some build up. Would an Avengers X-Men crossover film work?
Not as things are right now.
Not as things are right now, but I would love to see it.
Oh yeah, certainly.
That being said, I feel like you couldn't adapt X-Men Avengers versus X-Men as the comic was.
No.
If you tried to do it in the MCU.
It would very much be like
there was so much buildup that made that storyline work. You had everything to do with the Dark Phoenix saga. You had everything to do with there was a bunch of shit with Cable helped build up to that. House of M built up to that. It's all stuff that the MCU hasn't done, and it's very clear that they aren't doing.
It would have to be, first of all, you would have to have a very established X-Men for this conflict to make sense at all.
Yeah.
Second of all, like it would definitely have to be like a Civil War situation where we're using the same basic idea and everything else is gone.
I think that it would have to be like we're basically taking the base premise of Avengers fighting X-Men, and that's the only part of that storyline that we're adapting is just the basic premise.
Yeah. But it would require
maybe phase 9. I don't fucking know.
I was
like
about to say, like, it would have to take a
it's-
while. They need a well-established X-Men. X-Men need to be an actual existing force that has built up a bit of renown, maybe not renown, but a bit of a reputation. People need to know the X-Men are a thing and that they're not going away. We can't do that like halfway into the first MCU X-Men movie.
I did have I talked about this on dailies at one point back when we were doing that show. I did say like hey, if we're not going to do Kang Dynasty,
which we're not.
which we're not, what if we do Avengers versus X-Men as the lead into Secret Wars, and that is our first multiversal crossover, and
that would work way better.
And that is what brings about the convergence event that causes Battle World. And I was like, so that means you have Avengers fighting Fox X-Men.
Yes. See, here's the thing about Secret Wars. Like, X-Men is very much a third faction in that conflict. If you read the original comic,
yeah,
they're kind of very quick for anyone who might not have read it. There's a being called the Beyonder. He basically treats the Marvel Universe as action figures, and he's like, put them on a world, see if good or evil wins. X-Men are kind of like...
That is at least the 80s version.
Yeah, the 80s version, the original Secret Wars.
Which it's very... It seems, based on what we know of Secret Wars, it seems like they're probably going to be actually doing 2015.
Yeah, I know. But just let me cook here for a second.
Yeah.
In that original conflict, X-Men is very much like its own thing, kind of in the middle. Because, like, Magneto is a little more morally gray. The X-Men kind of don't want to get involved. So there's always been this level of conflict between how the Avengers operate and how the X-Men operate. So I think there's definitely potential. It's just that the X-Men don't exist in the MCU just yet. And they need to be an actual noticeable force first. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you're saying like phase 9, I'm like, yeah, maybe phase 9, 10, 11.
That's why, like, a while back, I think it would have worked to have done a crossover with the Fox universe. But I think Deadpool and Wolverine, in addition to a bunch of other stuff, kind of put the nail in that.
Also, a lot of those actors are just like not doing this anymore.
Well, I'm sure that if Disney came to them and was like, hey, we got MCU money, that they would be like, what up?
True.
And then also you have the question of which X-Men. Are we talking X-Men 2000 or are we talking Days of Future Past X-Men? Which ones are we... Which team are we setting up against?
Do
we got Famke Janssen or do we have Sophie Turner? What we got as far as Jean Grey?
Aside from the Deadpool movies, it's been a hot minute since I watched anything X-Men. Like, the movies, at least. So, I don't fucking know. I don't know who I would prefer, even.
I think we would probably wind up facing the younger team.
Probably.
Just because obviously those actors are probably way more open to doing this kind of thing. And also on top of that, they're a little bit more marketable, I think. And
yeah, probably.
Either team would have Hugh Jackman, so it doesn't really like you still get that. And also just on top of that, I think that the younger team that we were having in the more recent films are a lot closer to your traditional X-Men lineup. So that's probably what Marvel would want to use anyways.
Probably. I don't know. I'm excited to see what Marvel does with X-Men eventually. Sure, but let's see what happens.
I think that's going to be good. And even if we don't get a bunch of mutants in the MCU, I think that Deadpool and Wolverine was just a lovely send off of the Fox universe that I think that's a nice little moment.
I do want the mutants. I would be perfectly fine if they never show up in MCU based on that alone. Like,
I think they're gonna show up in the MCU. No. I don't know if I necessarily need like a full on X-Men.
Exactly. I'm talking pure like speculation here. If they never show up in any MCU capacity, okay, that sucks, but I'll live. Is what I'm saying.
Chances of Wesley Snipes' Blade getting a Logan style send off? None.
Low.
I don't think that's happening.
Low.
I know that Wesley Snipes wants it, but he did just no. I think Deadpool Wolverine was his send off. Also,
like Snipes is just not the name he used to be in any shape or form.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I also do think that him and the role of Blade carries weight.
Yes, that is true. That is definitely something, but it's not happening. I don't see it happening,
No, it's not
especially because they
we are
really want.
We are far more likely to get a Gambit film than
That would kind of rule.
Old Man Blade.
Yeah, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Also, they're already having so much trouble making the new Blade movie. Apparently, how many rewrites has that gone through by now? How many years have we been fucking waiting?
That is firmly stuck in production hell.
I don't know what the hell is happening with that one. A lot of people have, and I know. Of course, it's more complicated to write a movie than a lot of people think. But as a lot of dudes are saying, like, why is it so hard to write a movie about a dude going around chopping up vampires with a sword? Like, what's the holdup, guys? What's happening here?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
It's so weird.
It is definitely rough. I wonder if Dylan Brock will be in The Last Dance. Not likely, unless if Dylan Brock does show up, it'll be like, you know, somebody shows up and is like, hey, guess what? You have a son, and it'll be like a baby.
I was about to say, like, I had to look it up because I'm that behind on Venom lore that I didn't even know he had a son. But
I do think that if Dylan Brock does show up in the Venom films in any way, shape, or form, he will be a literal infant.
Yeah, probably. They're gonna pull the Madame Web on that one. God.
Yeah, I just don't.
Dumb.
I do not really see that happening. Your thoughts on the rumors about Spider-Man facing off against Robert Downey Jr., Doom, and Avengers Doomsday? We know that that's going to happen.
It would make no sense not to at this point.
As far as like Robert Downey Jr. Doom, have we talked about that on the show?
We have a while back. I think we shared our thoughts. Where I'm like, the very fact that he looks like Tony. We don't know yet if he's gonna be a variant of Tony. Most likely, otherwise that makes no sense.
I don't think he's gonna be a variant of Tony.
Whatever. The very fact that he looks like him at all is definitely gonna have an effect on MCU Peter in some way or another. So,
or just if MCU characters in general, it's gonna someone's gonna mention it.
If they don't do it, they're just ignoring a bright big ball of story possibilities hanging.
If they don't do it, then there's no point in having cast Robert Downey Jr. in the first place.
Exactly. I remember when it was announced that people were just like, "Oh, they're desperate. It's all a big scam." Yeah, maybe it's just a marketing thing. But also, the MCU has been very plan heavy for like a decade now. They definitely have something in mind for this. They're not doing this on a fucking whim.
Yeah.
There has to be something to it. Maybe not something great. Maybe not something we like. I don't fucking know.
I don't think this is a break glass in case of emergency kind of situation.
No, I highly doubt that. They must have an idea. They must have somewhere they're going with this. I don't know where, because it's a confusing choice, certainly. But I'm sure they have ideas.
Yeah. It's gonna happen. Was Channing Tatum's Gambit a decent character in Deadpool Wolverine? Yeah.
He was a walking punchline, but that was what made him great in that movie. But I think when he was actually in Gambit mode and like being a serious Gambit and fighting and shit, things were pretty goddamn cool. And I'm not the biggest Gambit fan that ever existed in any shape or form, but I could see it.
I will say that when it comes to mutants, I think Gambit might be my least, like the one that I am the least interested in. I've never been a big Gambit man. I like Rogue. That is like, to me, my interest in Gambit is purely related to my interest in Rogue.
So this is a side thing, but here's my take on mutants. I prefer mutants when they're really goddamn weird. Like,
I know that doesn't surprise me at all.
No, it's just the whole premise of mutants being this hated subspecies of humans that everyone hates. If they all look like Cyclops, I don't understand it.
Ash, I don't know if you know this, but you really, really like weird things.
I know.
Like, that's kind of like 90% of your personality.
I am aware, and I don't
like bizarre, weird things.
I don't care.
So, like, of course, you like the weird mutants, and
my problem is guys. The thing is, a character like Gambit has no reason to be a mutant. He could absolutely exist as a random superhero that isn't a mutant.
Yeah.
When I engage in X-Men, it's a lot more fun for me to actually see someone where I can be like, okay, I can understand why the public would be immediately afraid of this person or mistrustful of this person. because half of them just look like Captain America, but the second you say the word mutant, suddenly that's completely different. And I know racism is stupid. People are dumb. I know that this would actually happen. Don't get me wrong here. I just find it a lot more interesting when mutants have weird powers, look strange, behave in different ways, and actually look like they're not just humans. So that's why Gambit is not that interesting to me. Rogue is more interesting because she has a superpower that is basically an illness. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I definitely get where you're coming from. And it reminds me of, I've seen basically some variation of the same TikTok skit like 3 or 4 different times. Where it'll be somebody, it's like, oh yeah, this is what it's like living in the Marvel universe. It'll be somebody being like, guys, I got powers. And everyone's like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. How'd you get them? And then the minute that the guy says, oh, I guess I'm a mutant, everyone's just like, fucking mutie. And
or Inhuman. Don't even get started on Inhumans.
Like they were all like super excited that he got powers, but then as soon as they find out that it's like, oh yeah, I guess I got it from birth.
It's like it's like the reverse of that old HBO sketch. Did you ever see that one? Where this girl is super excited. This is something we saw in class when I was studying film. Is this girl, she's super excited. She's going up to her family and she's like, hey, I got a role in a big TV show. And they're like, oh, that's great. What are you going to be doing? Okay, so I have an incestuous relationship with like 5 guys at once. And I rip some guy's head off and I say fuck in every other sentence. And they're like sitting there horrified like, oh God, did you like get in a porn movie? And she's just like, oh no, it's HBO. And then they're all like, oh, that's wonderful. It's kind of the reverse of that. It's a great sketch, by the way.
We'll take this
complete aside. Sorry.
One last question, and then we will end the show today.
Oh,
not JPEG asks best and worst Punisher live action version. It's Thomas Jane.
Don't remember the Punisher movies that well, and I've never seen the '80s one. So
Thomas Jane. Realistically, the best live action Punisher has been John Bernthal.
Mm-hmm.
I think like we can all agree that John Bernthal was the best one.
He was amazing.
The one that I
like,
the one that I like the most is Thomas Jane.
Yeah. So I have seen the 2004 Punisher movie. I don't remember a goddamn thing about it. So I can't really comment there. I haven't seen the 80s one with, is it Van Damme? Is it Van Damme who's in the 80s one?
No, Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren, that's where we go.
I
haven't seen that one.
In the 80s, and then Punisher Warzone. Why am I spacing on this actor's name? Ray Stevenson.
There we go, yeah.
Was Punisher Warzone. Which is a good film in its own right. But Thomas Jane is my Punisher. He will forever be my Punisher. I think that's largely because outside of seeing him in like the Spider-Man cartoon in the 90s, I didn't really know who the Punisher was until randomly one year for my best friend's birthday, we went and watched Punisher 2004 in theaters. And that was sort of my official introduction to the character. And so to me, that is what the character is, even though that's not really that accurate characterization wise to the comics.
For all the talk we just had about how I like things getting weird, when it comes to superheroes, I kind of like them to be a little more on the traditional side, you know? I don't need everything to be a big cosmic scale event. I don't need every episode to be about saving the world. Sometimes we just need a bank robbery or helping the old lady cross the streets. I only need a hero that has like one power. They don't have to be fucking Green Lantern or anything. Love Green Lantern, don't get me wrong. The vigilante style superhero where they're like killing people and being all dark and stuff has never really appealed a lot to me.
So 90s comics just did not do anything for you.
Well, in the 90s when I was a kid, obviously, because they were what we got. But like the whole like, oh, my name is Bloodkill and my superpower is I have 7 guns up my asshole at all times. No, I don't care about those. So Punisher has never been that much on my radar. I'm not saying he's a bad character. I'm sure there's great Punisher stories out there. I just never really cared. I loved him in Daredevil Season 2 when he showed up on Netflix, Daredevil, which was awesome. Yeah. I saw the first episode of his own series, never got around to the rest. But I do remember like that. Of course, I can accept it when I'm like, okay, I'm going to be watching a violent vigilante. It's just not my first choice. I do remember the first episode of Netflix Punisher having that scene where he just tears people apart to the tones of Hell Broke Loose. which is a fantastic scene.
It's brilliant. You get your
because-
Netflix Oneer action sequence.
Yeah, exactly. It was fucking fantastic, and I have that song on my Spotify still. But I guess my point is, like, I've never cared enough about Punisher to really compare them and to religiously watch every movie he's in. I do at some point want to see the 80s one just to see it. I kind of want to get together with a friend.
It's your typical 80s action movie.
I don't doubt it.
Any character.
I don't doubt it. Here's the thing. I want to, like, gather a friend or two of mine and just watch, like, pre-Fox, pre-MCU Marvel movies. I'm talking Howard the Duck. I'm talking Incredible Hulk. I'm talking all that stupid shit. I don't care how bad they are. It's gonna be hilarious. like the 90s Captain America shit with Rip Brown and stuff like that. Or is that 70s? I don't remember. Whatever.
I know that I said that was our last question, but Carnage really wants us to talk about Spawn.
Oh shit!
Yeah. He's made like 3 or 4 comments.
Sorry,
Spawn.
we're not trying to ignore you. Sorry.
Let's take a second to talk about Spawn. Todd McFarlane does want to do another Spawn movie. This is something he's talked about for years. At San Diego Comic-Con, or a few days before San Diego Comic-Con, actually, he announced that the script was done. And so now I remember I was in the room while Screen Rant, we were doing the interview with Todd McFarlane, and he was talking about how they're shopping it around. They're trying to find studios, gauge the interest to like get it made. I'd be down for Spawn.
Absolutely.
Spawn has been one of those characters that I've never like actively been a huge fan of, but I've always like paid attention to what was going on with Spawn. Like even if I'm just watching from a distance.
For what I just said about these dark vigilante heroes, Spawn is like so fantastical that he's kind of an exception. Because like he's a fucking hell thing walking around summoning axes and stuff. That's not the same thing in my eyes. He's too much in the realm of fantasy to really fit that. So I do like him. And I mean, I remember back in the day when the movie, which is not that great, but it's still fun, that was like the coolest shit on planet Earth. And I've seen at least the first season of the animated series. There's definitely potential in Spawn. I would love to see him get readapted. Honestly, it's about time. He hasn't had any major shit since the late 90s. Like, give the guy a chance. Come on, man.
By the way, if anybody who worked on the original Spawn film sees this, know that my offer that I made on the Screen Rant podcast back in the day still stands. Because we had an episode of that podcast where I just ripped into that movie. And it's specifically the VFX. Like I just tore it apart. Dude. And I said at the end of that episode, if anyone who worked on that movie wants to, they can come on the podcast. We will watch some of the short films that I've worked on, and they can tear those apart. That offer still stands.
I love that.
That offer will stand until someone takes me up on it.
Look, I always talk about like 95 to 2002 as like the era where CGI was almost good.
Yeah.
Like just in general. So like you can love Spawn and the Mummy and all that stuff as much as you want. Those effects are aged, man. And Blade is just as big an offender of this, and I love Blade. Don't get me wrong. Don't look me in the eye and tell me the moment when Deacon Frost like reconstructs himself from blood. Don't look me in the eye and tell me that doesn't look like fucking gelatin.
That looks Ash. That looks great.
No, it doesn't. You're lying.
It's a genuinely well done bit of VFX. That shit still stands up today.
It does not. It looks like somebody threw Jello at the camera. Fuck you.
No, yeah, it's awful. It's awful. No,
I love
the
it,
CGI,
but it's ugly.
The CGI in The Mummy Returns was terrible. CGI in the first Mummy was passable.
It was good for the time. It was good. I got freaked the fuck out when that like scarab was crawling under the guy's skin. Ugh.
It's obviously of the era, but I think the first Mummy film, the CGI in that, it is not bad enough to take me out of the movie. Let's put it that way. Like it is when I'm watching it, I'm like, that's a little rough, but I'm not like pulled out of the movie. I'm still in the story. I'm still immersed.
There's
The Mummy Returns when the Scorpion King comes out. That takes me out.
There's a lot of late 90s CGI that is Ooh, boy.
To me, that is the mark of bad VFX. And maybe this is something that we should do an episode on at some point.
Maybe.
The VFX isn't bad to me until it is so bad that I am pulled out of the story and sitting there going, that was awful.
That could be an interesting one, because then we could talk about like really old effects and how things used to be done, and how that looks nowadays. Whatever, that's a different conversation for another time.
Carnage, we could sit here talking about fucking Black Adam and all the like ridiculous special effects, but again, we need to wrap this episode up. We will do a VFX episode, and
let's do that sometime.
I've got so many more things to say about Black Adam than anything to do with the effects. If I was to list the shit that was wrong with that movie, the VFX would be like maybe the 19th or 20th thing that I'd talk about. It would not be anywhere near the top of what was fucking wrong with that movie.
What a mess.
You're fucking Black Adam. There are some. Okay, now I'm on a tangent. We're gonna talk about this for a second. There are some things about Black Adam that I really liked. I liked the JSA.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and that is where the list ends.
Pierce Brosnan, Dr. Fate was a highlight. Let's be real.
The JSA was cool. Having Dr. Fate, the Atom, fucking like all them guys. It was great, and I thought their casting was brilliant. Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate.
I have never particularly loved Pierce Brosnan, but in that moment I was like, yes,
I like
perfect.
I would never say that I'm a huge Pierce Brosnan fan. Like I watch every single thing he's in. Like no, I enjoy him when he shows up.
He's
I'm
fine.
Never mad when I see.
I've never had a problem with him. I just never expected him to be like perfect.
But he was. I think he was spot on casting for that part, and I think that he did a great job in it. But that is it when it comes to Black Adam. Everything after that is just dog shit garbage tier. And I think the biggest disservice that DC ever did to Henry Cavill, all the shit that DC did to Henry Cavill, and all the ways that they shit on Superman. Him showing up in that end credit scene was the top of that fucking list. Why the fuck was it Superman?
The whole thing is so dumb. So dumb. Oh God, Black Adam.
And don't even get me started on The Rock's refusal to have anything to do with Shazam. Nowadays, I'm refusing to have anything to do with Shazam just because Zachary Levi's a piece of shit. But beyond that, Black Adam and Shazam, these two go together like peanut butter and fucking jelly. Yeah. Why are we not allowing that to happen?
Oh, but John, they were just trying to pull a Venom with Black Adam.
Fuck off. Venom, the Venom and Spider-Man situation, there's an actual reason why they have to separate those two. There's no reason other than The Rock's fucking ego that they had to separate Black Adam and Shazam.
I have just found the new easiest way to piss you off. This is amazing.
Can you tell that I'm fucking pissed about this?
I will be using this new knowledge responsibly, surely.
Carnage, this is your fault. You got me talking about Black Adam. There are only a few movies on this planet that'll get me fired up talking about the fucking bullshit surrounding a fucking movie. Quite like this. You've got like Black Adam and fucking Alien Covenant. You get me started on either of those two, I'm going to fucking rant for the next 20, 30 fucking minutes.
I hope you guys spent this time going to get some snacks or something.
Yeah, because get ready, because you're about to sit down and you're about to watch Ash continue his journey through Silent Hill.
Yes, I'm going to be switching. If you're on Twitch right now, you should stay there for a bit. And I'm going to be posting a link real quick for those of you that are watching this on YouTube. Because I'm going to be moving my mic and I'm going to be switching over to continue the Silent Hill 2 remake.
And I'm going to be peacing out because I got to go sleep.
It's probably not going to be a super long stream. I'm just putting that out there right now. We made it to the Cursed Apartments. I'm probably just going to play until I get to the next major location. But we are playing a little more because I cannot put this game down.
Oh, you mean you're not going to stream for the next 4 or 5 hours?
Dude, it's 10 p.m. No.
Maybe we should instead play Phasmophobia and keep you up until 3 or 4 in the morning.
Maybe you should fuck off and go pack up.
Actually, I'm going to go sleep. I'm going to go take
do that.
Right, but with that,
here's
guys,
the Twitch link, folks. So
yes, check out the link. He posted it in chat. Also, as I said, next weekend there will not be an episode of BitRate. Esh will probably still stream, so be sure to check that out. He'll be streaming in all the same places the show goes up. So check those out. We'll be back hopefully the weekend after that. Again, I'm moving, so I got to get settled and I got to get stuff figured out. I got to get internet figured out and sorted out and all that nonsense. Check out our social medias. I'm at Bender Waffles on basically everything except for Blue Sky, which is Blue Sky. I am just.
I think you're just John Algis there.
I think I'm just John Alditz on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
I'm just John Alditz on Blue Sky, and the only reason why I did that was because Perry Nemiroff once yelled at me about the fact that all of my social medias are at Bender Waffles, and she thought it was stupid because anytime that she had to tweet at me for dailies, she was like, I would start typing John Alditz, and then I'd have to halfway through remind myself that you're Bender Waffles, and I think that's dumb. And I was just like, all right, that's fair. So on Blue Sky, I'm John Alditz, but everywhere else, I'm Bender Waffles. Jump over there. We'll have more information about that. Or, of course, follow my man Esh at Esh_Fic Addict on that's on Twitter. On Blue Sky, you are
I think it's the same thing.
The same thing without the underscore.
Yes.
So I'm going to be pushing Blue Sky a lot more.
Yeah. Blue Sky
and also
definitely
my
needs a push.
TikTok. Jump over to my TikTok. I'm posting a lot more stuff on TikTok.
You are actually.
Yeah, lately. I'm trying to be a good like social media person. I'm trying to get better at it. Because given what I do for a living, I should be doing this a lot more. I should be better about it.
Yeah.
Anyways, jump over there, check that stuff out. I will see you guys later. Esh, have a good stream. Yeah. So I'm gonna end this stream. Stick around if you're on Twitch or if you're on YouTube, jump over to Esh's stream on Twitch.
Yep.
So yeah, see you in a sec.